This is a presentation of Northeast Streaming Sports.
You are watching Frankly Speaking Sports, live from Charlotte, North Carolina. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to another episode of Frankly Speaking Sports. I'm your host, Larry Franken. Boy, oh boy, are we excited. A lot coming up. I mean, this entire week in the world of sports, we have implications in the NFL. What is going to happen with the playoffs? Well, we discussed that yesterday, so we're not going to go over that in detail today, but we got other sports going on. We got baseball. Is there going to be a lockout come the beginning of the season or not? What the heck is going on at MLB Network? Getting rid of Ken Rosenthal. We'll talk about that. And then later on in the show, it is a great honor, thrill, and privilege to have a three-time NBA All-Star. His number 52 is retired with the Nets. He's the 1982 NBA Rookie of the Year. We're going to have Buck Williams joining us in about 27 minutes from now. So we're looking forward to that as well. But we want to get started here. First of all, I want to thank everybody who's watching on Roku TV, on the Northeast Streaming Sports Network. Want to thank everybody listening on TobaccoRoadSportsRadio.com, and of course everybody else on all the other platforms that we're on, including Facebook, YouTube, Twitch, Twitter, and so on and so on and so on. There's so many different platforms, and we got such a great show for you. We hope you all share this with your friends, share this on timelines, however you can share it, please share it. We love being here. We love our new home at Roku TV. But we're going to start off today's show with some baseball here. And for those of you that are not familiar with it, there is a baseball lockout going on. I mean, a lot of people are not familiar with this due to the fact that, it's off season. Not a lot has been made of it. And, it's really bothersome. If you ask me how, here is a sport that has had chances in the past to be in the spotlight and to bring things back together. At sometimes it brought America back together with, of course, the World Trade Center plane crashes and all of that. But at other times, like during COVID and during some unfortunate situations in our society the past couple of years, baseball has not delivered, and baseball has really put a sore thumb in a lot of people's mouth as far as fans go. And right now, they don't seem to be having any interest or any, I don't know what the right word is. Maybe sense of urgency might be the right word of getting this thing back on track. Right now, baseball's is on lockdown. That means no employees are working for these teams. Okay? People say, well, Larry, it's not that time to get too worried yet. Okay. First of all, if you're not going ahead and talking now, it's just foolish. Why do you have to procrastinate? Why do you have to wait to the last minute to start negotiating when people are starting to get excited? People are getting fired up. People are making traveling plans, whether to Arizona or Florida, to see preseason games, to see exhibition games. for these baseball teams. It's a big, big market out there. People love to travel to see their teams in these warmer climates during the colder seasons at home. But yet, baseball continues and continues and continues to screw this up. And, you can sit here all day and say it's the owner's fault, it's the player's fault, da-da-da-da-da. At the end of the day, as far as I'm concerned, it's both's fault because they're not agreeing to sit down and look for a compromise to get this done. This has to be done together. You cannot reach an agreement in any sport, in any industry, in any corporation without sitting down and getting to the bargaining table and figuring things out at a compromising level. Yet, baseball continues to do so. And one of those reasons that maybe baseball is having so many issues, so many problems, so many leadership qualities over the past couple of years could be because of their commissioner, Robert Manfred. And we talked about Robert Manfred many times on this show, Commissioner Manfred. And I struggle with the word using commissioner with him because he lacks so much ability and quality and what it takes to be a very good commissioner. And, it bothers me so much that this man cannot take the leadership role when leadership is needed. Robert Manfred, first of all, here is a guy, okay, that cannot make a tough decision. He doesn't like conflict. We all know that. He shies away from conflict. We've seen that with the Astros scandal. We've seen that with the Red Sox scandal. We've seen that with all these decisions during the COVID when he had an opportunity to step in and he waited to the last minute because he's afraid to make a decision. The owners who he works for may not be happy with him. Oh, too bad. I mean, at the end of the day, he has an obligation to do for the fans as well as the owners, and he's not delivering. He is not delivering. I mean, we saw all the people that got off in this Astros scandal. We got to see this guy on opening day 2 years ago when they're interviewing him being completely drunk during an interview on opening day. It just baffles me how this guy can still be in the position that he is in, and no one, and I mean no one on either side has done anything about removing this lost cause that is in charge of Major League Baseball right now. Then you get this thing with Kenny Rosenthal, okay? And this is the one that, really baffles me here, being dismissed by Major League Baseball Network. You want to talk about losing respect for a corporation, if I wasn't on TV right now and facing regulations that I need to face, I tell you exactly in the words that I like to describe it. But due to the fact that I am on TV and I very much, respect the people that I work for, I'll say it in this. I have no respect for MLB Network at this time. Okay? And I'm not talking about necessarily the people that work for it, that do the shows, that do the anchors, like the John Heymans and those folks, or the Jeff Passons and so on and so on and so on. But you got to be kidding me. You let go of a guy that has been there for 12 to 14 years on your network, has been the face of Major League Baseball, whether it's on Fox Television, MLB Network, works for The Athletic, as we all know, and you just dismiss him for the reason that he might have hurt the feelings of a commissioner that is unqualified in Major League Baseball? Yes, Major League Baseball Network is owned by Major League Baseball. But at the end of the day, Kenny Rosenthal has a job to do. And Kenny Rosenthal does that job better than anybody else that could be placed in that position. Nobody. To me, and I mean this as the highest compliment, because everybody knows what I used to think of Craig Sager when he was alive, and rest in peace, Craig Sager. But he is what Craig Sager was to the NBA, is what Kenny Rosenthal was to Major League Baseball, or is to Major League Baseball. And I'm sure his wife, Stacy, would agree with that and would not mind me saying that. But, this is ridiculous. I mean, disturbing. And you wonder what nobody's allowed to tell. Here's a guy that was telling 100% the truth. He was telling the truth. And just like the movie says, you can't handle the truth. Well, Robert Manfred could not handle the truth. And what happened to Kenny Rosenthal? They let him go. That is just a backstabbing wussy call on MLB Network, and they should be ashamed of themselves to let someone with that kind of quality and that kind of impact on the game like Kenny Rosenthal go. I'm sorry. I mean, it just gets me going. I cannot believe how somebody or some organization like MLB Network cannot say, just stick up for this guy. This guy has given you his bloods and glory and everything he has for 12 years. And how do you return the favor? By telling him we're going to let you go because you told the truth about the man in charge of Major League Baseball? You want to talk about hurting the integrity of the game, MLB Network? You just did it by relieving this guy of his duties. Okay? In no way, shape, or form should Kenny Rosenthal been dismissed. And I'm kind of upset that more people, including the John Heymans, including the Jeff Passons, including the other individuals who report baseball on a daily basis, has not come to this guy's defense. You know why? They're probably all afraid of losing their jobs as well. And it has come to a real shame where people have to wonder, worry, and be concerned every single second of every single day that they are going to hurt somebody's feeling. We have become a very thin-skinned society when we used to be, in the days when Kenny started, a very, very thick-skinned society. And it's a shame because it's hurting people and it's hurting good people. Not everything that is said is necessarily said in a negative way, but it's being heard in a negative way. And we got to get over this, folks. We got to get over it, whether it's, someone like Stephen Smith calling out that he doesn't feel that Ohtani should be the face of Major League Baseball because of the language barrier. He didn't say that he doesn't like Ohtani because he's Chinese or Japanese. He said that because of the language barrier, it would not be a good thing. Or the Rachel Nichols thing with Malika Andrews saying, hey, listen, I don't care if anybody that is better than me gets this job because they're more qualified, but please don't tell me that you're going to give somebody my job just totally based on a color of their skin. You have to give them on the content of their character and their ability. Nobody has the right to take a job because of their ethnic background or their race. At the end of the day, the best person should get the job. And I believe if people will look at what Rachel said in a positive way, just like Steven said in a positive way, they would have realized that. But we have that avenue of always thinking the worst and always thinking the most negative. And instead of these corporations saying, no, Kenny Rosenthal was right in what he said, and then backing him up and telling people, hey, this guy works for us. This is what we pay him for. If you don't like it, too bad. But we're going to continue to keep this guy on our show, MLB Network, on our station, because this is what we pay him to do, and nobody does it better than Kenny Rosenthal. Let's go ahead, take a quick break. And when we come back, we're going to talk a little NBA basketball.
This is a presentation of Northeast Streaming Sports.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Frankly Speaking Sports. I want to remind you, those of you who are watching us on different social media platforms, like Facebook or YouTube or Twitter, and you want to leave a comment, go ahead. Please feel free, and we'll get it on the air as quickly and as soon as possible, time permitting, of course. We wanted to remind you that in about 15 minutes, former three-time NBA All-Star, 1982 Rookie of the Year for the New Jersey Nets. That's right, New Jersey back then, folks. Buck Williams will be joining us. We're looking real forward to that. But before we get to Buck Williams coming on, want to talk a little bit about the NBA. What's going on in the NBA? We haven't talked about it a lot lately with college football going on and just about ending this upcoming Monday with the championship game, NFL last game of the season coming up this Sunday. So the playoffs are going to be, we want to make sure we get some time in and at least look at some of these teams and what's going on so far in the NBA. And when you go ahead and you look at some of these teams, especially in the Eastern Division now, you start out with the Atlantic Division. How about those Brooklyn Nets? They're off to a 23-12 start, but the darn team can't win at home. You know, they're 10-9 at home. Meanwhile, on the road, they're 13-3, and everyone knows they're led by Kevin Durant, averaging 29.7 points a game. You got James Harden, who bounces in another 22 points, 8 rebounds, and 9.9 assists a game. Talk about doing it all. You got Patty Mills, LaMarcus Aldridge, and my good buddy David Duke leading that Brooklyn team to a 23-12 record. But right behind them is those Philadelphia 76ers, folks. Don't look now, but they're 20-16. Joel Embiid, 26.5 points, 10.9 rebounds, 4.2 assists. Tobias Harris, 18.3 points a game. But the one thing about this team with Philadelphia, the reason why they continue to win so many games is this team is number one in the NBA at the free throw line. Number one at the free throw line for the 76ers. So, you know, great display by them. Holding on tight right behind Brooklyn. You know, it's hard to say with COVID and some of these games that were suspended, this and that. But right now, it looks like they're 20-16, while Brooklyn is 23-12. And don't forget, Philadelphia has Seth Curry on that team. They also got, what is his name? I believe it's Maxey or Tyrese. Forget how to pronounce his name. But they got a great team there in Philadelphia. Then if you move over to the Central, you got the Bulls, 25-10, led by DeMar DeRozan, 26.9 points. You got Zach LaVine, 26.3 points. And then, of course, Nikola Vucevic, 15.9 points, 11.6 rebounds, and 3.3 assists a game. But right behind them is the Milwaukee Bucks, who I think is one of the better teams in probably one of the more underrated, but probably the best team, maybe behind Golden State. You got Phoenix out there playing well. We'll get into that in a little bit. But you got Giannis on this team, leading this team to a 25-14 record, 27.9 points a game, 11.5 rebounds for Giannis, 5.9 assists. You got Drew Holiday, 18.5 points, 6.5 assists. How about Chris Middleton, one of my favorite Bucks, 18.3 points, 5.3 rebounds, 5 assists. And then, of course, you got Bobby Portis going ahead and knocking in 15.4 points a game and 19 rebounds. As you move to the Southeast Division, the Miami Heat are all alone pretty much in that division, 23-15. Jimmy Butler doing it all, 23.2 points a game. Who do we got? Big Bam Adebayo, 18.7 points. You got Kyle Lowry on that team, Tyler Hero. That's just a great team. As I just check my messages here. And, that's another great team out there. And it has, the one team that I like, and right now they're winning at halftime, is that Charlotte Hornet team out of Charlotte, North Carolina. If they can just learn to play a little bit more consistent and not build these big holes that they're building at the beginning of games, this team could be a force. They have what I believe to be one of the best young backcourts in all of the NBA, with Terry Rozier and LaMelo Ball. One thing I'd like to see LaMelo Ball do a lot better, and it's hard to say do better because the youngster's 20 years old, been doing an amazing job, but sometimes he comes down the court and he tries to do too much and he turns over the ball, and sometimes that's going to happen with playmakers. You like to just see him a little bit more under control, but once again, look out for the Hornets, who are 19-19 and they're winning tonight. Meanwhile, in the Western Division, as we go quickly through this, Golden State 29-7, led by three-point king Steph Curry, averaging 27.2 points a game. Andrew Wiggins with 19.1. Jordan Poole the other night, 32 points off the bench versus Miami. Looking good, and of course they got Draymond Green. But you think a 29-7 record would do something for you, but not when the Phoenix Suns are in the same division and have Devin Booker averaging 23.9 points, DeAndre 8 and 17 points, and of course Chris Paul 14. But one of the most well-balanced rebounding teams I think out there in all the West has to go to the Memphis Grizzlies, who are 25-14. Jay Morant, 25.1 points. Dylan Brooks, 19.3 points. And then you got in the Northwest, Utah, 27-10, being led by Donovan Mitchell with 25.7, Rudy Gobert with 15.5, and Bojan Bogdanovic with 17.8 points. So the NBA season, full swing. Now comes the fun time. Hopefully all this COVID is behind us. We can look back, but I'll tell you what, lots of good things happening in the NBA right now. And, just wanted to give you a very quick rundown on each team, who's leading what leagues. And, like I said, I know a lot of fans on here from the Charlotte, North Carolina area tonight. Keep the trust in those Hornets. I mean, right now they were leading big at halftime. Hopefully they can keep that up. But you got a good young team, a lot of depth out there. And, depth is going to play, obviously, as it already has in this season, play a very big part in this NBA season all the way through the playoffs. Let's go ahead, take a 15-second station break. And when we come back, we're going to be joined by three-time NBA All-Star, 1982 NBA Rookie of the Year. We're going to be joined by Buck Williams. Let's go ahead, take a quick station break, and we'll be back right after this.
This is a presentation of Northeast Streaming Sports.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Frankly Speaking Sports. I'm your host, Larry Frank. Want to thank you all for joining us today. I want to remind you all that lots of good things going on this weekend. Immediately following this show, Sneaky G, that's right at the top of the hour, we'll be joining you live. Show you definitely don't want to miss. We talk a lot in Charlotte and around this area, especially in the North Carolina area, about ACC basketball. And we're going to hit on that a lot more next week. ACC now with Wake Forest beating Florida State yesterday. Coach K's last year, NC State finally won a basketball game after losing some. But our next guest was a hell of an ACC player as well in his day. I remember him very well from the old days. Let's welcome in three-time NBA All-Star, 1982 Rookie of the Year, Let's welcome in Buck Williams. Buck, how you doing tonight, buddy?
I'm doing fine, Larry. How about you, man?
I'm doing good, buddy. Just full of energy, a lot going on in the world of sports, and really, really happy to have you on, and hopefully you had a terrific new year.
I sure did, and I've been sitting backstage kind of watching you do your thing, and it's kind of nice to see the excitement and of the teams in North Carolina. They're doing well. The Charlotte Hornets is sort of been a surprise this year. So we all excited about our Hornets.
And you're from North Carolina, Buck, and I remember, obviously you played in the ACC in the late 70s and 80s. But I got to ask you this: when you were finishing up your college career, I believe it was like 1981 at Maryland, there was a young coach starting at Duke University named Mike Krzyzewski, and I know you got to play against him for 1 year, but talk about Coach K, what you remember back then, because that was his first year coaching, and how amazing it is to look up and get to watch him in his final year at Duke right before us.
Well, there are some coaches that I played for and some coaches I played against. And one of those coaches was Larry Brown. And Larry Brown's whole philosophy is playing the right way. That means you can defend, you're going to share the basketball, and you're going to play as a team. And there's some coaches that kind of pedigree. And Coach K is one of those kind of coaches. I mean, all his players over the years have been able to be well-rounded. Fundamentally, they always share the ball. They always defend. And I always respected Coach K for that. Other coaches are Coach Smith. He recruited me in high school and same philosophy, share the basketball, defend, the best of your abilities, and he would bring along very slowly. People always say, about Michael Jordan. So who's the best defender ever played Michael Jordan? They always say Dean Smith, because Coach Smith would always bring his players along very slowly. He wouldn't give them too much too soon. And I think nowadays with all the younger players coming to college, they're getting so much too soon and they don't get developed as a player. But Larry Brown, Coach Smith, Coach K, those guys have the same DNA. And I respect them for their coaching ability, how they were able to bring their players along and develop their players and make them part of the system.
Now, let me ask you this, Buck. How much more pressure did you feel when you got drafted, being that not only were you picked third overall in the NBA draft, but now you had to go play in the media capital of the world? Yes, it was the New Jersey Nets, but we know about the New York media. How much, if any, I mean, obviously by your performance, you didn't feel a lot of extra pressure, but, as a young man, going from college to New York, from Carolina to Maryland area, how much did it affect you and how much extra pressure did you feel?
Larry, I think it's a great question. I started playing basketball late. I just started playing organized basketball into the 9th grade. So I started in 9th grade. By the time it's 12th grade, it's another 3 years and 3 more years in college. 6 years removed, I'm in the NBA. And I have to credit Coach Drizel for preparing me. He really coached a man-on-man defense. He coached a lot of hustle, a lot of grit, and he really further nurtured, my work ethic. And so when I went to the pros, I was well prepared after, playing in Maryland for 3 years. And I credit Coach Drizel for that. I mean, the system that he runs was a pro-style offense and pro-style defense. So it was real smooth. I got a chance to play against a lot of the All-Stars in 1980, that team that I was on, the Olympic team, that was boycotted. And so we played against all the NBA All-Stars that year in the summer. We were 4-1 with Isaiah Thomas, myself, Mark Aguirre, and Sam Bowie. So to answer your question, it was a smooth transition from my experience playing on that 1980 Olympic team to play against the NBA All-Stars and playing in Coach Drizel's system, which prepared me very well for the pros.
Now, when you did get to the pros, you obviously NBA Rookie of the Year, your first year, All-Star team, first couple of years. I mean, you did adapt very quickly to that game, and I know, like you said, you got to play with a lot of these NBA guys, but when you got to the NBA, did it seem any faster than when you played with those guys on the Olympics, or did it seem to be slowed down for you due to the experience you did have?
Well, it was so interesting because my sophomore year, Coach Rizzo told me that summer that I have to play the center position. So at that time, at the center position at Duke, it was Mike Jaminski. At Clemson, they had Moose Campbell, and also we had Ralph Sampson in Virginia. So my sophomore year, and I'm going into my junior year, I had to play the center position. Really was a blessing for me because at that time, those were three of the best centers in the country. So if I could play against those three guys, I could play against anyone. So I gained a lot of confidence, and I had developed my game to shoot over those guys, and that kind of carried me into the NBA, playing against much taller, much bigger players. So it was a blessing that I got a chance to play in the ACC against some of the best talent in the country. So my transition is pretty smooth. When I first got there, before I got there, I got a chance to work out with Adrian Dantley in the summertime before I went into the pros. And anyone that knows Adrian Dantley, he has one of the best workouts in the country. And a lot of guys could not handle his workout, but I worked out with him in the summer. And then my rookie year, I got drafted by the New Jersey Nets, and a player by the name of Maurice Lucas was there. Probably one of the greatest power forwards ever played the game. So he took me on his wings and kind of taught me a lot about playing that power forward position. So I was really blessed to have that kind of tutelage going into the NBA also, along with the fact that I played in one of the greatest conferences in the country in ACC.
Now, the game's changed so much since you played in the NBA. And I used to love the game back in the 80s and 90s when it was called inside basketball. You take the ball, you work it inside, you wire to everybody, muscle down low, throw some nice, beautiful elbows and things like that. Now the game's become more of an outside game where it's live and die by the three-pointer. Do you think eventually the game could ever get back to that inside type game that was so physical and so dominant back in the 80s and 90s?
Oh, great question, Larry. I had a conversation with Larry Harvey Arrington, one of the Hall of Fame sports writers today, and we talked about the same thing. The game of basketball, NBA basketball, constantly evolves. When I first started, we could hand check, like you were saying, we could throw an elbow, and the game was played within 12 to 15 feet from the basket. And as you said, it started on the inside, but it was inside out, so the ball would go in first and work its way out. Now the game is you start on the outside at the three-point line, and very rarely goes inside. I see guys that are centers who rebound, get offense rebound inside. They don't turn to finish the play. They turn and kick it back out for a three-point shot. But to answer your question, the game will evolve at some point. NBA is a copycat league. At some point, it'll go back to ball going inside because most of it is predicated on your talent. Right now, the guards dominate the game. To shoot all the shots, and they're lucky to throw the ball into the centers. But yes, it will evolve. You will see the ball at some point, maybe not this year, next year, 2 or 3 years down the road, but eventually it'll get back to going back inside. But now you have all the analytics. The analytic guys come in and say, well, over the corner over there, to shoot the three is a higher percentage shot, and we feel that if we shoot more three-pointers than shooting two-pointers, we can win the basketball game. So the game is just constantly evolving.
Yeah, and I agree with you. I'm watching a game the other night, and just like you said, here's a rebound. All you have to do is maybe just, duke a guy once and put it back in, and you score, and they're dishing it out for a three-point attempt. To me, scoring 2 points used to be a good thing in the NBA, but I guess now you got to get 3. But we talk about that inside game, and I want you to hit a little bit on that. I mean, you're noted for being an all-time rebounder in the game, especially for the Nets. Talk about some of the most fierce battles and some of the most fierce competitors that you bumped heads and elbows with underneath the basket during your career.
Well, one of the most greatest, fiercest battles I had was with Karl Malone in Utah. Karl Malone would beat you up on offense, man. He's a tough customer. I mean, I had to guard him in the 1990 playoffs. In order for us to get through Utah, I had to defend him. And I went to bed early every night before I played Karl Malone. And you had guys like Maurice Lucas before Karl Malone, guys like Lonnie Shelton. And this is when you had to fight in that power forward position. I was 228 coming out of college. In that power forward position, guys are 260 and 270. So I had to learn how to battle those guys, and it was rough and tough in the NBA when I first came in. And now to watch the play, no hand checking, no hard fouls. I mean, it's kind of hard for me to kind of to watch it, but it's still a great game. So the game is really transformed, but it's still a great game. But those dudes were rough. I mean, and I recall one game I got into a fight with Lonnie Shelton, and it started on one end of the court, and we finished on the other end of the court. And most of the times I was backing up trying to get this guy off me. He's 300 pounds. So the game has changed. And matter of fact, the fine for the games, like I got fined like $5,000 or $10,000. And I was like, wow, man, this is incredible. But now guys are getting fined, $75,000, $100,000, and it's nothing. But the game is changed the aspect. I think they cleaned it up. You can show more of the talent of the players now. But it's still a beautiful game. And NBA is so special because you can tweak it, and it can still keeps the whole substance of the game of NBA basketball, which is very unique.
Yeah, now, you're having a great career with the New Jersey Nets. At that time, they were called the New Jersey Nets.
Right.
And, then back, I believe it's towards the 89 season, you traded to the Portland Trail Blazers. Were you surprised at that time that you were traded? And what was your initial gut feeling remembering being traded?
Yeah, I had some great years in New Jersey. Matter of fact, I averaged a double-double, and every year I would get, 1,000 rebounds, 1,000 points up into my last year in New Jersey. And I never requested a trade. I just felt that somehow between the management and bringing the right personnel for us to win in New Jersey. But when I got a call that I was traded to New Jersey, that to Portland that summer, it was probably the best decision that ever happened to me. The best thing to happen to me anyway, because that team that I went to, I had a player by the name of Clyde Drexler, Terry Porter, Duckworth, and these guys had played together for a long time. The only thing they needed was a power forward, someone that could score inside, some leadership. And that first year, we won over 50 games and went to the NBA Finals, which is like unheard of, because the years before I got there, they could only get to the playoffs in the first round when they get knocked out. So that was a great move on my part. I didn't know what to expect, but as far as winning and get a chance to play in the finals, that was a great opportunity.
Yeah, you had 3 Western Conference Finals, 2 NBA Finals. Talk about some of those teams. I mean, you played in, I know you ended in New York back with the Knicks. You started in New Jersey with the Nets. What was some of the main differences between those teams that just seemed to be more enjoyable playing in Portland?
Well, the thing about it's about management. I mean, a lot of players don't talk much about management. But if you have a team that's managed very well, for example, the Nets were not a very good managed team. Portland was a very good managed team when they had Jeff Petrie. And it really made a difference because they had a vision. And the players that they brought in really complemented each other. The chemistry was like incredible in Portland. Also, they brought in Cliff Robinson. A lot of players don't talk about as much. He was a 6th man off the bench. He had a great career in the NBA. And his attributes to us getting to the finals were like incredible. So I think it came down to a difference of chemistry and a difference of just good, solid management in Portland. And that first year we won 50-some games, went to the finals. The second year was probably the best team we had. We lost to the Lakers in the Western Conference Finals, and Magic Johnson at the end of the game took the ball and threw it into the court and let the time expire. We should have won that game, but they beat us at home, and we could never get the home court advantage back. And then the next year we go to the finals again, and we run into one of the greatest players ever played the game, in Michael Jordan. My North Carolina native, he did not cut me any breaks. He lit us up. Like I said, he's a special player. I think he's one of the greatest. I don't know if he's the GOAT or not, but he's definitely one of the greatest. So we lost to Chicago in 6 games. So it was just a great experience. And then from there, I went to New York, got a chance to play with Patrick Ewing and Charles Oakley and some of those guys the last 2 years of my career.
Yeah, now, when you came into the league, if I remember, the league needed a lot of help. I mean, the league was going through a time, but I believe it was yourself. You know, you mentioned Jaminski. I believe that was, if I'm correct, the same time that Larry Bird and Magic Johnson were coming into the league as well. How did you see? Because I mean, basketball became just unbelievable back then from the 80s to the 90s. They had this period of time where it just reached this epitome. And talk about some of the things that you saw from the NBA in general, from the day you started to the day you finished, that just changed amazingly to make it so fan friendly again.
Well, you know, everyone has to understand that before Larry Bird and Magic Johnson came to the game, the NBA finals are tape delayed. The NBA was perceived as being too black and drug infested, especially after, you know, merging with the ABA. So David Stern, which I give him a lot of credit, along with the Players Association, really changed the perception of NBA basketball. So I came in a year after Larry Bird and Magic Johnson came in, and I really called it the golden age of basketball in a way because of how, you know, they transcended the game. They made it more of an international game. It made it more fan friendly, and just made it just a great sport. Those two guys, we owe them so much credit for just changing NBA basketball in general. So that was part of that group of guys, early 80s, that kind of really changed the perception of the game. And I'm very proud of it because of what we've done and things that we put in place when we came in has allowed the NBA to kind of get to pretty much where it is today, being very popular. You know, the contracts that they have with ESPN and the marketing they do is second to none. And it is really a stable and it's a very viable business right now based on the changes and the evolution of the game it's had. And a lot of it started in that Larry Bird, Magic Johnson era.
Is it true to say back then when Bird and Magic and yourself and then all the other players at that time came in that basketball was a lot more of a team game than it is today?
Oh, there is no question about it. And I think, I never forget the Nike poster. Years ago, Nike had a poster. They called it like the Supreme Court. They had all the great players. They had marketed all those great players on that one poster. Moses Malone, Iceman, and it was more of a team sport. And then Michael Jordan came along, Magic Johnson came along, and Bird, and the NBA started marketing the superstar. The Bird, it was the Bird League. Then it was the Magic and Bird League. Magic and Bird handed the league to Michael Jordan. So the whole concept of team play kind of changed because they really took that one player, even like now, for example. You have LeBron James. It's almost like it's his league. And when I came in, it was more of a team. You market all the players. But now you market like one or two players on any given time. And I think it's helped the game to a certain extent, but it's also at the same time, I still believe that the game is a team game, but all the marketing NBA did kind of change that whole concept.
Yeah, I agree 100%. Talk about, you mentioned the NBA Players Association, which a lot of people may not realize, but you were a member of for I think 3 years, the member of the NBA Players Association. What was that like for you to be a member of that?
Well, yes, I was the president of the Players Association, and I've been a player rep ever since I've been in the league. Fritz Walker got me to be a player rep when I first got there as a rookie. And it's very interesting for me because I spent a lot of time with David Stern, and I call like his team of all-star lawyers doing collective bargaining. And it's really fascinating to understand the financial part of the league by being at the table, at the bargaining table, and bargaining over, benefits and bargaining over salaries and just bargaining over the whole aspect of the business of NBA basketball. And I got a chance to know David Stern a lot, and I really have a lot of respect for him as a business person and also what he brought to the game. David loved the game of basketball, and he negotiated that way. He was very fair. He always made you feel good about getting a better deal than you got. He was a master at that. But it was fascinating just from the inside, watching how the whole game of NBA basketball worked and always making that bridge to the international players. when I was the president of the president of Players Association, we were having discussions then about making the NBA an international game and bringing the international players over to play in the NBA and connecting the international players with NBA. And to look at it now and see where it is now, you have so many international players in this international league. And it really just makes me feel good that I have a hand in leading these players in that direction. So it's been a fascinating run for me, not only on the basketball court, but the legacy that I left off the basketball court in terms of my position as the president of the union.
You know, and I always wondered because, you know, players come into the league, especially younger players, and they understand, hey, I'm being paid to play a game, you know, do my job on the court, but they never understand the big picture. How important, now that you've been through it, you know, as a rep and as the president, of course, of the Players Association, how important do you think it is for the younger players and all players, speaking that mind, to understand the game besides the court?
Larry, you're so on. I mean, that's an incredible question that you raised. You know, when we negotiated collective bargaining agreement back in, I think it was '94, Michael Jordan, a lot of superstars, they wanted to certify the union because they felt that to certify the union, they could get a better deal. And I said, guys, you know, Michael, Patrick, you guys, pump your brakes. I think we can get a better deal at the bargaining table because there was no way you're going to leverage David Stern because he had most of the cards. The deal was going to get done at the table. But I think the point I would like to make tonight is that the players that now are making the salaries that they're making the salaries because of the collective bargaining agreement that we negotiated back in the 90s, and the guys before me negotiated. Back in the 1990s, Chicago Bulls had their own television program, and they would earn their own games. The NBA did not want the Chicago Bulls to air those games, so they took the Chicago Bulls to court. And out of that court case, we got exposed to all the finances of the league, and all the revenue were not included in that agreement, the collective bargaining agreement. So what we did, we made the NBA include all of those revenue in the collective bargaining agreement. So what you're seeing right now is that when I came in the league, you had to get better in order to get paid. But the players come to the league now, they have to automatically get paid because of the agreement that we struck, because the NBA has to pay the players a certain percentage of those revenue, where it wasn't like that before. So a guy may come off the bench and make $13 million. Say, well, how can this dude make $13 million? He's not worth $13 million. It all goes back to the collective bargaining agreement. The NBA has to pay those guys their fair share of that revenue, and we're responsible for getting those guys that kind of revenue because we discovered in the lawsuit that NBA was not giving the players their share of the revenue. So when you see these guys making all this money outside a guy like, outside of LeBron James or the superstars, a guy coming off the bench making $10 or $8 million, that's because of the deal that we struck. It's not about, it doesn't equate to the kind of player he is. It just means that NBA has to pay him the kind of money because of the deal that we struck.
Right, which is incredible. Moving it forward,
that's
great.
Younger players understand that.
Right, that's awesome. That's great. Let me ask you about a couple of things that happened and then we'll wrap it up. But talk about some of these monumental moments for you. Number 52, being retired by the New Jersey Nets. How much, I mean, you played for a team and you played for Portland. I know, they've honored you too. I mean, but does it really feel at the end of the career to understand after it's all said and done that you're that respected where they retire your number?
Larry, when I was playing, you're in the moment. Like now, we're in the moment. You don't think about tomorrow. You're just thinking about what I need to do to get ready to play and what's my next opponent. Since I have retired, I had a chance to kind of sit down and kind of think about and reflect on my career. And I look back every day and I'm just amazed because my jersey has been retired in my high school at Rocky Mount Senior High in Rocky Mount, North Carolina. My jersey has been retired at Maryland. I'm in the Hall of Fame in Maryland. And also one of the 50 greatest players that played in the ACC.
Yep.
Then my jersey retired in New Jersey. And it's been a phenomenal run. And I say that because this year, the last 2 years, I've been nominated for the Hall of Fame. And just looking at my numbers, I I'm one of like 6 or 7 players that average a double-double. When I retired, I was in the top 12 all-time rebounders at 228 pounds. I am 3rd all-time in offensive rebounds. So there is a young group of kids at Fordham Prep in New York. They have done an a statistical analysis of my career to making a case for me for the Hall of Fame in February. So we'll see how that goes. But to answer your question, God has blessed me, and I've played with some great players. I think I left my mark on the game. I left a legacy in the game, and I think I deserve to be in the Hall of Fame. And hopefully, I'll get that call at some point. But I just hope
you get that call, buddy. You get that call. Tell me what it would mean to you. I mean,
oh my God. It'll mean a lot because, my parents, my father had a 3rd grade education. My mother had a 5th grade education. And they instilled certain things in me in terms of being, they didn't give me the money, but they instilled things in me like work ethic. They instilled in me being consistent, showing up every day. And those things that they instilled in me propelled me to to have the career that I had. And I kind of owe it all to them. So it would mean a great deal to me because it would just kind of, it would be like a honor. I'll be honored through them by going into the Hall. And it just would be a phenomenal thing for the legacy, and also part of their legacy too, to be a member of the Basketball Hall of Fame.
Now, Buck, do you still watch ACC basketball?
I try to. Maryland's in the Big Ten now, but I kind of, watch Duke some, and I watch Maryland last couple of games I watched with Maryland. So I still enjoy watching it, probably more so than I did before. ACC basketball, to me, is still the best basketball.
There's people that doubt it, but I love this guy from NC State, Sebron. He is just. I love him. I watch him every time I can here. I'm in Charlotte, so I get a lot of the games. So just an amazing, amazing talent.
It is. I mean, like I said, the ACC never really had a drop off. Certain conferences have a drop off, but every year in and out, the ACC had the best teams. Duke, North Carolina, Virginia. Maryland when we were in ACC. So it just, like I said, I just think it's just the best conference in the country. You're talking about basketball, Tobacco Road, basketball. It doesn't get any better AC. And I grew up on AC basketball. Phil Ford's from my hometown, who inspired me to play basketball. Buck Leonard, who baseball played the Negro League from my hometown. So when I grew up, I had these huge figures in my hometown, and inspired me to do great things.
Well, listen, my friend, I want to first of all thank you so very, very much taking time out of your schedule to join us on Frankly Speaking Sports. And I can tell you right now, I know one person that's definitely rooting for that call for you in come February.
All right, thank you, Larry. I appreciate it, man. Your questions were, man, one of the best interviews I had. You really was on the mark, your questions, and I really enjoyed talking to people that understand the game and can ask some really thoughtful questions. And I really enjoyed my conversation with you.
Well, thank you very much. And if you ever need anything, we're here for you.
I appreciate you, man.
All right, stay safe.
Down for me, okay?
All right, buddy.
All righty, take care.
That was Buck Williams, 3-time NBA All-Star, 1982 NBA Rookie of the Year. And I'll tell you what, this is what gets me, okay, and you listen to him, and he's so right. Of course he's so right. But, he's right because he does deserve that opportunity to be in the NBA Hall of Fame. It's not all about points. Everybody thinks the glory's in the points. And yeah, there might be glory when you score 40, 50, 60 points a game. Wilt Chamberlain, 100 points a game. But there's so much more involved in the game of basketball as a team in order to be successful, like rebounding and dishing the ball off, like assists, and is just so missed in the game. Block in the middle. We talked about that a couple games ago about Plumlee of the Charlotte Hornets. He may not always get the points and the glory, but boy, is he making things happen. Buck Williams was one of the most fierce guys underneath the basket of his entire era. And if he doesn't deserve to be in the Hall of Fame, then I don't think there's anybody that does deserve to be in the Hall of Fame. This man was one of the great basketball players at a time where there were a lot of good basketball players. You know, not just LeBron James, not just Michael Jordan, but he had, look at the people, Bill Laimbeer inside. He had what? Barkley, I think, was starting back then. He had Karl Malone was a beast back then. I mean, just a lot of it. Then you had the Larry Birds, you had the Magic Johnsons. I mean, Dr. J was even playing back then. I mean, you had some unbelievable players, and he played at an era that was incredible. Not was it just incredible, but he played at a high level during a high level era. Unbelievable. Unbelievable. Well, ladies and gentlemen, we got about 4 minutes left in the show. I want to remind you of a couple of things before we get going here. Obviously, we won't be back till Monday night. As you all know, going to have a lot of information, a lot of things to talk about as far as the NFL playoff picture will be decided completely. We went yesterday. We did a show on the NFL playoffs, who has a chance to get in, who does not have a chance to get in. If you didn't get to see that show, please go back and watch it on YouTube, on Frankly Speaking Sports, on Twitter, so many different platforms to go ahead and watch Frankly Speaking Sports on. Also, we do want to remind you that following this broadcast, immediately following Sneaky G is going to be coming up. Man, I got to tune in for that. Sneaky G, the guy's so sneaky, just sneaks right in there every single night right after my show. So I'm going to catch him tonight. So, make sure to tune in. Sneaky G, remind everybody that is listening on different platforms that are not aware of it yet. We are now on Roku TV or Roku TV, however you want to pronounce it. Depends what part of the country you're from. But nevertheless, it's Northeast Streaming Sports. You channel search on Roku, and we'll be on it. You can join Frankly Speaking Sports every Monday through Wednesday night, 9 p.m. Eastern Time. We continue to have some of the best guests and the best interviews. You just heard our good buddy Buck Williams tell you what he thinks about our interviews. And we want to once again thank Buck so very, very much, as we do all of our guests that have been on this week. A reminder, lots of football this weekend. Monday night, championship of college football. We'll see you all Monday night. Want to thank everybody for tuning in tonight, and have a very safe weekend. And we'll see you again Monday night, 9 p.m. Eastern Time on Frankly Speaking Sports. Good night.